All right, click the link to join the channel here or subscribe to it. So Barbie's success is going to start a chick flick trend. So be ready to be dragged to the movies by your significant other. Barbie has been a staggering windfall for fundamentally a crappy movie. And this isn't just me, not touching grass and hating on chick flicks. Other chick flicks have been watchable as couples movies. If you're male and you like this, you're definitely a soy boy. Stuff like Titanic, Notebook, Thelma and Louise, Fried Green Tomatoes, those were all well-made films. They weren't exactly made for me, but they were okay if you saw it as a couple. This was different. This was for young chicks, the BLT crowd, the virtue signaling crowd, SJWs, and if you're male, then you're definitely a soy boy if you thought this was pretty cool. And the audience was like only 65% female. I honestly thought it would be more like 85, 90%. But chicks were dragging their boyfriends to see this movie. So where we are now is it's Monday, and this has grossed, I think, about $350 million domestic and foreign. So by this Thursday, it's going to hit $400 million for sure, which is probably in the profitable range, depending on what their ad budget was. And this weekend, it's going to make, who knows what the legs are, the drop is on it. It could make $50 million. That would be a huge drop to $100 million or more, which is, by then that will be solidly in the black. Then over its entire run, how much could it make? Who knows? But it's going to have a minimum $100 million net profit, which for a chick flick in the sort of post Wu Flu world, there's still people on Twitter who are concerned about this movie and the Wu Flu and not enough people wearing those, things in front of their faces. And like, I look at that, like, you're still worried about this thing? That's like, wasn't that over like 2 months after it started? I mean, it was for me. Anyway, always trust the government media. So why did this movie do so well? Because it was a fresh movie on a well-known brand, at least well-known to women, or well-known to everybody. Everybody knows Barbie. It's been around for like 70 years. I don't think there's anything that has better saturation, name recognition. And it's not a sequel. It's not a reboot or a reimagining like something like Witcher, Rings of Power, Willow, those kind of things where they're just going to butcher it to push some kind of narrative. This is going to be the start of a series because anything it did well it's going to do well. It's going to make over 100 million profit at least, and it could do a lot more. You're going to get a sequel out of it. You'd have to. And so you're also going to see a rise in more chick flicks. So what was the movie? Well, I mean, it was pretty bad. It was pretty silly, but it had a pretty blonde woman, but she's not threatening to women because she's older now and she doesn't have that primal, cliche, curvy body. She looks more like a model who gained 15 pounds and is slightly past her prime. And I don't mean that to be offensive. I'm trying to be accurate. I'm not saying she's chubby. I'm saying the reverse. It's that models are so skinny that they can still gain 15 pounds when they retire and they still look skinny. That's how light they are. And I like Margot Robbie's body type, but most guys are more into curves. So you've got a pretty but not sexy blonde, and you have just pink all over the screen. And everything is cute in the car, from the cars to the sets to the costumes. It's just cutesy. And it's mostly a very silly movie about silly women saying silly things that don't matter, but they look good when they're saying it. And the sets and the costumes are fun. So blonde and pink and not quite threatening are key selling points for women. Then it was an echo chamber to reinforce women's worldview. It's all nonsense, of course, but I think deep down the women know it's nonsense if they stop to really kind of break it down. But they know the name Barbie, Margot Robbie, and Ryan Gosling, and everyone is pretty blonde and super pink in the movie, and it's just telling them exactly what they want to hear. Women hear about the patriarchy nonsense all the time, but they never really deeply analyze it, or else they would disagree with it. It's just something that they mindlessly repeat. So when they hear their delusions affirmed on screen, they're fooled into thinking that they're hearing something deeply meaningful instead of understanding that they've been manipulated. There's a scene like that where they say the women clapped in the theater or something when she's giving some lecture to try to wake the other women up. It's like, it's just the same tired cliche nonsense. Like if you thought about it, it's not some deeply moving speech. It's just nonsense that people repeat over and over again. And yes, to be fair, similar things are true for guys' movies, of course. Nobody's trying to convince you that Commando from the 80s with Schwarzenegger and Alyssa Milano, actually. We're not trying to say that those are good movies either. Most movies are crap. They're just crappy in different ways. So next, the movie was an event movie. Chicks got an excuse to dress up in pink, which they love. They're genetically hardwired to want to display pink to signal fertility. They can't help themselves. And they got to take pictures of themselves at the theater, and they got to post it on social media. So they're getting a dopamine boost from that. They feel like they're part of something. And honestly, like what else was in the theaters at the time? Mission Impossible, that's for guys. Oppenheimer for guys. There like these three movies were kind of it, unless there was some much smaller budget movies out there also. But in terms of draw the female audience, this was it, and this has been it for a long time, and this is probably going to be it for a while. There were female lead movies before, but they were superhero movie, action adventure movies. It's like that's not what women want. Women want this kind of nonsense, this kind of clueless, type of stuff. So the movie was coupled with Oppenheimer. It was the perfect storm, and that is not going to happen again for a while, because fundamentally Barbie was a crap movie, but it was pretty, blonde, and pink. And film companies are going to be racing to throw something similar on screen, like Clueless, or something about female vampires, but they'll fight the patriarchy by attacking right-wing radio shock jock, not Alex Jones, or Alex Jones types, or who's that guy? The guy who was on the radio in the 90s. They'll be wearing red hats, and they'll just be, just cliche after cliche. And they'll have like stand-ins for frat guys, and everyone will be blonde, of course. Or Trump supporters, and there'll probably be some red hats. Just stupid stuff like that. They don't want you thinking too deeply about this stuff. Barbie was a combination of a silly pink and blonde dress-up movie fundamentally about nothing, but it had some lectures on feminism, which were important because it gave it street cred, and it gave her permission. The lectures on the patriarchy, all that buzzword bullshit nonsense, gave women permission to see something silly and pretty about nothing. So you're 100% going to see it all, this theme repeated in future chick flicks, which you're probably going to see another half dozen come out immediately. But, you're probably not going to see them anyway because you're not a chick unless your girlfriend drags you to movies. Plus, it had an obese Barbie, and it had a male Barbie who didn't quite pass, which was kind of awkward to see that on screen. Anyway, so everyone got to play dress up. They gave some stupid lectures about feminism, and everyone bad in the movie was of European origin. It was the perfect shallow SJW movie where they come to the real world, and like every bad guy, there's like 20 bad guys, sort of bad guys, who were, just sexist jerks, who were all, of course, blonde or look like me. And one guy sexually assaults her on, is it Venice Beach or Santa Monica? Somewhere down there. That doesn't happen, but a white guy goes up and slaps her on the butt. Like, it's, like, I'm trying to think of an area, like, where that happens. Like, that doesn't happen anywhere because you get arrested. It's nonsense. It's like that's what happens when women make movies like this and they put those kind of scenes in there. It's like in Wonder Woman 84 where the girl was walking down from work, and she's walking past the park, and there's a black homeless guy there, but then there's a blonde guy in an overcoat, a suit and tie and an overcoat, and he's drinking out of a paper bag, and he just harasses women. And if you're familiar with cities at all, you break it down, you're like, wait, why is this guy there? They don't want to say he's homeless because they don't want to poverty shame him. They made him an alcoholic, which is already kind of right on the edge, but he's blonde and he sexually harasses her and he tries to attack her. It's just like, that's not what happens in cities. But they put that kind of nonsense in there. You realize, like, yeah, if this guy was in a suit and tie drinking in a city, he'd be the victim of a crime within minutes. None of that makes sense, but they put scenes like that into movies. I was going to say, because when chicks watch movies, they don't think as critically. But then I'm going back to the Commando example. It's like, so you're saying guys think critically when you watch Commando? Fair point. Fair point. People, I'll say people don't think critically, men and women, when they see what they want to see on screen. Where, Arnold has got the M60, which is infinite belts of ammo that just kind of magically never run out. It's like I can look back and go, that was a really dumb movie. Predator was a much, much better movie. Anyway, so this was the perfect, very shallow SJW movie that said all the right buzzwords that they want to hear, but they also got to play dress up. It's actually a brilliant combination of elements that magically come together to turn a really bad movie into something that is going to spawn a bunch more stupid chick flicks. And yes, all the bad guys will be fair-skinned and light-eyed, and there'll probably be some red hats in the future. And it was like, God, what was that Wolverine movie with where like the opening scene of that is fair-skinned guys in a limo who are acting like jerks. It's like, is everyone bad in Hollywood? Does everyone out of like Nordic central casting? I guess that must be the real world. I guess all the bad guys in the real world in LA are all look like me. All the guys who sexually harass women. It's weird. Actually, BuzzFeed did a experiment video where they filmed a girl walking around like New York for, I don't know, like 6 hours, hidden cameras around her, and she did get harassed. She did get catcalled and harassed nonstop. But the funny thing is, 100% of the guys who harassed her, and I mean 100%, didn't have blue or green eyes like me. They didn't look like me, is what I'm trying, or you, because I know the audience. They didn't look like us, is what I'm trying to say. 100%. She was dressed in like a lycra bodysuit. She had a curvy body. She got catcalled for sure. But they were all guys. They were all men. Yes, that's right. They didn't have blonde hair. Like no one in their family had blonde hair or red hair. But, I'll leave it at that. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. A very sincere thanks to everyone who has been sending me comics and all the other goodies. And I will see you guys all next episode.